Hey guys, it's Karalynn and welcome back to the podcast. And today we're going to talk about different ideas and ways to build wealth. Specifically, we're going to have a topic around franchises and other ways to build wealth. And our guest today is Adam Goldman, and he's going to teach us how to build wealth through franchising and other business ideas. Welcome to the show, Adam. How are you?
Doing great, Karalynn. Great to see you today.
You too. So before we dive in, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now.
Great question. So look, I'm the kind of person that never fit into corporate America. And what I mean by that is that I just did everything in my power to avoid working for someone else. So much so that after college, I went to Eastern Europe. And even after business school, when other people were getting jobs with McKinsey, I was allergic to the average path for that, right? And I found myself stumbling into the franchising world 15 years ago as someone that is very good at building businesses, right? But not necessarily good at creating the process to build those businesses. So had my own office cleaning master franchise in Houston, started that 15 years ago and got an unsolicited offer on that business and became a full-time coach and consultant in franchising, which means that I'm a matchmaker. I have different franchise concepts in which I make connections for people that are looking to invest in franchises.
Okay, so can you tell us, for like people like me that don't know a bunch about franchising or franchises, what is it and how does it work?
So franchises is really, bottom line, you're paying money in the form of a franchise fee or a royalty fee in exchange for a brand, think Chick-fil-A, right? Or McDonald's, and a process, meaning McDonald's University.
And so then you can buy like, I'm sure there's tons of them. What are some of the most
Yeah,
we
yeah.
said Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, what are some other ones that are not food
Orange
related?
Theory.
Is that a franchise really?
Yes. A big success story.
Yeah. I go to Orange
Urban
Theory.
Air.
Yeah. That's great. So how can you build wealth through franchising?
Well, a franchise is just like any other business, right? Meaning, I have friends that own multiple units and they are able to build wealth by, just like any business, scaling that business. In fact, I would argue that franchising is an amazing way to scale a business because you're not reinventing the wheel. You're in a situation where you already have this great system and you're able to build it. That's just like any other business.
How is the implementing, like somebody that doesn't know how to run business, what is the implementation and the starting of a franchise look like?
So look, I would say that for franchises, you got to be the kind of person that has some sort of business acumen. And every franchise business is different, but just to kind of give some sense for my opening, for my office cleaning, I signed a lease. The franchise brand gave me a system. They said you should have X amount of square feet. They also told me, hey, you should probably start off by hiring an executive assistant. They were there every step of the way for opening my office cleaning master franchise. It's a system and it's a support for whatever brand you open.
So how does like finding the right, how do you still have to find the right team to do these processes, right?
You're talking about if you're a franchisee, correct? You're
Uh,
buying into a business.
Correct.
So, yes. So, I mean, every business is different. I have some brands that don't have any employees at all, which is really exciting. But there are other things like things such as McDonald's, right? Which isn't necessarily in my portfolio. But if you think about that, or Chick-fil-A, where you have a lot of people that might be high school students, right? That you got to manage. Each brand has different challenges or different levels of complexity when it comes to hiring and firing the right people.
Gotcha. So like the franchise comes with an employee handbook, the processes for all the employees, and with health and
Yeah,
housing.
all the above. And actually, some are subcontractor models. I know that's your bailiwick, right? But some actually don't have any employees or very few employees at the head office, but the model is to use subcontractors to perform services.
So tell me more about that. So like I was looking into what are some types of franchises in the construction industry?
So, wouldn't necessarily talk about specific construction related businesses, although I've actually seen businesses like this. So, for instance, I've heard of businesses that are in construction where it's related to storm damage, right? Where there's some sort of a storm event and you almost become a GC in the event of some sort of a storm. That's one business model that I've seen in the past. Look, so this isn't necessarily construction per se, but there are other service businesses, like for instance, office cleaning, where you might have subcontractor cleaning companies that you might perform the service for you.
Gotcha. And so you're just kind of managing them and make sure they're doing a good job.
Yes.
Gotcha. And so then do you help people set up their own franchises for their own business, or you help them invest in other existing franchises?
So my business is to take these existing really great brands that have great processes and find people that are perfect matches for them.
Gotcha.
If someone wants to franchise their business, that's a separate question. That's not my strength. But what I can tell you is that people tend to underestimate how difficult it is because it's a different skill set to actually take your own business and make it a franchise as opposed to buying into someone else's business.
I can only imagine trying to create processes that are repeatable everywhere that are
Absolutely.
successful.
And it's not only creating these processes, it's actually going ahead, Karalynn, and supporting these franchisees, a different skill set. You might have the most amazing people that are there running your business, but actually becoming a franchisor is a different ballgame.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So how do the franchises advertise, or what does advertising and marketing look like as part of that package?
Such a great question. It totally depends on the brand. Let's talk about local. We're both here in Houston, right? I was excited when our beloved Astros, and by the way, they're not very beloved this year.
Yeah, I
I don't
agree.
know when this episode's going to happen, but it's been an epic. We've been so spoiled, but I remember seeing them in the World Series, and I saw a franchise that was advertising in the outfield. In fact, when I'm at Daikin Park, I actually see a franchisor that advertises every time there's a K or there's a strikeout. Every franchise brand's different, right? When it comes to marketing, some actually have a pool of marketing, which is an advantage because if you're just solo, you don't have the budget to actually advertise. Whereas if you're together, then you have that budget.
Okay, so then what are some of the skills that if I was looking at purchasing a franchise or getting that I would need to make it successful?
Well, again, it just totally depends on the business, right? So that's part of my personalized service. I see my expertise as almost being like a matchmaker or literally dating, right? And so let's give you some examples. If
That'd be
you were out there and you're like, hey, you know what, Karalynn, I think you'd be a fantastic maid service franchisee. There's insatiable demand. Look, I know it's not the pandemic and everyone's at their house 24/7, but you know what? People are lazy, especially millennials. They don't want to clean their own house. What I would say is number one, you got to be the kind of person that's not afraid to recruit really good cleaners. Maybe you should be speaking Spanish, right? Or have someone that's a key person speaking Spanish as well. And you got to be the kind of person too that is not afraid to kind of have these systems in place because that's the kind of business which I love, by the way, where it's insatiable demand. You kind of turn on the faucet and you put up a shingle and you say, you know, I'm going to be having my this amazing maid service. Anyone in these zip codes, come ahead and do it. You're going to have insatiable demand. The challenge for that specific business, it becomes an operational challenge of going ahead and satisfying this insatiable demand for house cleaning.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So it kind of depends on the person. So you work as a matchmaker. Are you working, do individuals ask you for help? So what does like franchise coaching look like? If I
So for
were
me, the way franchise coaching looks twofold. Number one, you said, "Hey Adam, I think there's a lot of franchises out there," and that's true. It's like this endless ocean of many brands, right? So I'm getting bombarded on a regular basis by brands saying, "Hey Adam, please go ahead and please connect for me. We really want to find great franchisees," and I'm very picky about who I work with. I work with brands that are pre-screened in 75 industries. That's one part of my expertise of matchmaking. But the other part is just trying to find people that are looking to have multiple streams of income or looking for a compelling emotional reason to invest in something, right? And so that's where the matchmaking comes in. And the profile of a franchise buyer is very vast. I've had people as young as 25 and people as old as 75 invest in franchises. And I have all these different, I'm less about the actual widget and more about making this match a perfect cultural match and just a perfect match from a characteristic point of view for my candidates.
okay, so let's talk about what is the type of money that people can make off franchises look like? Is it a yearly payout? Is it monthly payout? What does that look like?
So just like any business, right? The way that it works is you get paid, right? Daily, hopefully, right? I have very few businesses where you don't get any money over the course of months. I know as for me, the payment process was great because I was able to invoice and I was able to pay my franchisees, my unit franchisees. It was a master franchisor on a lag. So that was really good for my payment terms.
Gotcha.
Some franchise businesses, unfortunately, they have to wait. If it's an insurance-driven business, you might actually have to put money up front, and then you don't get paid until a month and a half afterwards. So it all depends on the business model.
Gotcha. So it all depends on the business model of the franchise. Gotcha. So I'm guessing, what does it look like as far as money, the amount of money I would have to bring to the table to start a franchise?
Great question. So look, I like to divide franchises into two different buckets, right? First bucket is brick and mortar retail. Let's talk about the high end, right? Things like McDonald's, where it's the seven-figure investment plus. There is financing available. If you wanted to start a gym that was a very small footprint, that might be $200,000 all in. If we looked at non-brick and mortar businesses, right? I mentioned a maid service before. That might be a situation where it's $105,000 all in on the low end, and then it goes up from there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And so you pay that, and you get their name, and they go market, and they bring you clients.
You pay that, and what I would say is more than anything is that they tell you, okay, this is the marketing agency that I recommend to use, right? They give you the playbook, and then you make it happen with their.
Gotcha. So tell me about some of your client success stories.
Sure, sure. I mean, look, what I would say is what people are investing in, many of my candidates, it's really in freedom, right? And what I mean by freedom is I'm not talking about people that don't want to work. I'm talking about people that want to work on their own terms. My favorite placements are people, and again, they're just a lot of times they're trying to escape something. I mean, I've had people, let's talk about Houston related examples, people that worked in the Gulf, right? And they weren't seeing their kids for softball games over the course of 4 to 6 weeks because they were getting a lot of money, but they weren't getting that freedom, right? This lifestyle. So I had people that have started service companies are able to spend more time with their family. I had this one candidate, love his background in that he's actually quite rural. He's actually located in Idaho. And he just had to drive hours upon hours to get to his job. And with his current franchise now, he's able to live in Boise, make more money than before, and is loving life.
That's amazing. So what are some other ways? So like with franchising, is it common to like purchase the real estate where the business is going to be at? Or is that the ultimate goal? So you also own the real estate?
So look, I have some brands that have a real estate component to it, but the vast majority of my brands do not have a real estate component where you're buying the dirt underneath. That's a possibility sometimes. It's more, and one of the things that I hear is that if you're buying a business, just focus on the business because real estate's a separate component in general.
Yeah, it's kind of its own thing. So you
Yes.
have the franchises. What are some other ways we can diversify wealth creation and success?
Besides franchises.
Hmm.
So look, I mean, I can speak for myself. I'm a huge believer, getting off script here. I love index funds. Maybe in 2 years I'm going to be kicking myself about this, but having a diverse portfolio of index funds that have low cost to me is kind of the secret sauce.
What is an index?
Really,
Sorry, I
I'm
don't
sorry.
know. What is an index fund? I don't know.
An index fund is something that Vanguard sells where you're buying the market. It's not an actively managed fund, and it might have a very, very low cost associated with it. I'm an avid investor in the stock market, both the US and internationally. And I just think that that's a great place to put your money with the caveat that if things go down, that you don't panic, because I've done that in the past.
Yeah, so some of the money you can make from franchising, you can invest in the markets and other things.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in having multiple streams of income. I also believe in real estate, right? You've got to find the right sort of niche. It shouldn't be all of your profile, but and I think timing is everything in real estate. I was fortunate enough to invest in real estate after a really bad recession, right?
Yeah,
And that was, in hindsight, a great time to invest.
I agree. Because then it appreciates, because now it's worth a lot more than it was when you purchased it.
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in cash flow investments. I love the game Cash Flow by Richard Kiyosaki. My kids are huge, huge favorites. It's almost like Monopoly on steroids. And the whole idea is to find cash flow.
Yes, I think that's what we're all looking for in our business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yes, I mean, I was fortunate enough to find in real estate things that even now today that are giving me 20 or 30% of my money. And that obviously does not exist very easily.
So if somebody wanted to come to you and say, I'm interested in a franchise, and you wanted to be their coach, What does that look like? How do you help them?
Well, first thing is, I promise if someone comes to me, right, if they don't, not everyone is a fit for franchising, right? I promise to let them know. But what I can tell you is that this is kind of like the no brainer, meaning if you come, right, and you have the money and you're looking to diversify and you have some time, right, because this is not an absentee type thing, franchising is kind of like the big easy. And that's really, I mean, like you get the playbook, you get everything from the franchise brand. So the first step is to go to my website, franchisecoach.net. You'll find testimonials. You'll find out a little bit more about me and my background. You'll have a link to actually set up a free 15-minute chat. And what will happen is we'll have this chat. We're looking for people that have at least $50,000 in cash and $150,000 or more in net worth. There's a misconception in my world that you have to be a billionaire to invest in a franchise. I mean, you can really start very inexpensively. And so we'll have that chat. I'll ask you to fill out a quick survey. Then after you fill out that survey, we'll kind of find out more about you and anyone else involved in the decision. We'll make this perfect match, right? Typically, people are blown away at how quickly I'm able to connect them with the right fit. And then after you set it up, I'm not going to disappear, right? I'm here to kind of be a sounding board for my placements. I even have a roundtable of other franchisees that have invested because I think you can get a lot of value from talking to people outside of your industry. And I talk to my placements every quarter just to kind of see what's going on and kind of they bounce ideas off of me. I'm there for their opening. And I just love hearing from placements about what challenges they're going through and see what I can do to help them going forward.
Gotcha. And so do you help them deal with the franchise or like if
I give them advice.
gotcha.
Because look, a lot of times franchisors and franchisees are aligned, right? But I tell them one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give them, I don't mean to steal all my thunder here, Karalynn, but what I say is become the best friend of the team that is going ahead and supporting you, right? Because franchise brands have limited resources when it comes to their department of people that are supporting franchisees, because that's really a key focus about whether or not you're going to succeed or not.
Gotcha. And then what does succession planning look like? Can you sell a franchise once it's yours, or does it have to dissolve? What does that look like when you're like if somebody wants to sell it or if they're getting ready to retire? What does that look
That's a great question. Franchise brands have the power to say yes or no if you're looking to sell the business. Good franchise brands are very lenient as long as it's someone that really fits the culture. It just all depends on what you're looking for. Some of my friends that were at Orange Theory Fitness, they were blessed enough to actually sell their business to private equity groups because it was such an attractive investment for them.
Gotcha. So you can sell it, but based on the franchisor's agreement. Gotcha. So I know there's the initial setup cost, but you're continually to pay the franchisor. What does that look like and how is that done?
Well, that's what we call royalty fees, right? And it just depends on the franchise brand. I coach my candidates to stay focused less on how much you're paying and focus more on how much you're keeping in your pocket, right? But it could be very expensive. It could be as high as 20, 25%. And it could be on the low end about 4%. And sometimes it's it's just kind of a royalty fee that's just kind of capped every month, depending on the franchise brand.
So usually it's done on a monthly basis.
Yes, for sure.
Gotcha. Okay. Is there anything I'm missing about asking about franchises?
No, I just want to emphasize that some people come into franchising thinking that it's like any other investment where it's totally absentee. And we kind of touched this a little bit. It's really, you have to spend at least some time in the business, right? Meaning and there are different spectrums. Some of these are owner operator where you have to quit your day job. Others, you can run it part-time with managers.
Gotcha. What are some of the ones that you can do like part-time?
Well, let's kind of give an example. So believe it or not, we talked about maid services, right? Potentially, if it's the right business model where you have a strong system and you have these maids that are working, right? You could potentially even run it from your cell phone if it's working. Like that could be a part-time business.
You still have to be involved somewhat to make sure they're doing their job and handle complaints and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. But look, if it's incentivized and I have this one brand where it's almost like Uber for maid services, meaning they get paid based on a rating system from from the actual client at their
Yeah.
house. And that really is kind of the secret sauce in that they are motivated, they almost think of themselves as independent contractors.
Gotcha. Because they'll be rated and their payment will be better than that. Awesome. So if people want to find out more about you or more about franchise coaching, where should they go?
Just go to franchisecoach.net.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time today, Karalynn.